So this boy had the nerve to try and frame an intellectual heavyweight like Jordan Peterson. Sheesh! What's next? Me trying to convince y'all that I'm Wesley Snipes?
Worldwide exclusive.
So the idea that I've put thought into this is perhaps an optimistic one, but as you might imagine, you've been a topic of conversation on this campus a lot in the past week or so, certainly among a lot of us who discuss politics, and one of the things that sort of united people who like and dislike a lot of your ideas is that we appreciate your defense of free speech, and we appreciate you coming here to talk about it with us. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is Professor Van Dyke addressed the distinction between you and Jonathan Haidt. And you mentioned this as sort of a temperamental one. And I think, I'm sure that's true to some extent, but I noticed you've made a lot of more sort of substantively inflammatory claims. Like in the course of this lecture, you called the authors of Facebook posts demons and totalitarians. In past events, you've called them things like neo-Marxists, cultural Marxists. You've called them, I believe, a fifth column that is committing treason against the West. And it seems to me this is more than temperamental. This is a substantive difference.
It's a substantive difference, yes.
And another thing you've done is that, unlike Haidt, you have a more sort of comprehensive political program. You've talked a lot in defense of traditional hierarchies, both of gender, of class, so on, though emphatically not of race. And so it seems that...
I haven't talked about defense of traditional hierarchies in terms of gender and class. That's not true.
Well, you've talked about hierarchies in society. You've talked
about...
Yeah,
that's true. I have done that. But I haven't justified them on the basis of gender and class. Whatever the two categories.
You talk
not
about,
okay. That's an important distinction.
Okay, but you defend hierarchies in society in a way that... You talk a lot about the Pareto distribution, yes?
That doesn't mean I defend it.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think you talk
Observing that something exists is not the same as defending it. How in the world...
Well, people attack it.
Oh, he said observing that something exists is not the same as defending it. Ooh, boy, if people on the internet only understood that right there. My goodness, before they spoke.
People attack it.
Attack
Attack the hierarchies of society is inherently unjust, right?
Well, they're unjust, but they're also useful.
Okay, so you say they're useful. Some
people
would disagree
look at
with
it
that
this
proposition.
way. Okay, look at it this way. You obviously think that it's worthwhile to stand up and ask a question.
Yes.
So you think that standing up and asking a question is better than not standing up and asking a question.
Yes.
Okay, that's a hierarchy.
Yes.
Of values.
Yes.
Okay, without the hierarchy of values, you couldn't act.
Of course.
No, not of course.
Well, wait.
It's partly why I'm defending the hierarchy. Without a hierarchy, there's no impetus to act.
Hierarchy, right?
What's that?
There is a hierarchy in society, right?
No, there's multiple hierarchies in society.
Okay, there are multiple hierarchies in society, right?
Yes.
And you say that they are based in, you invoke the lobster, right? That they are based in nature.
Yes. I said that they were inevitable.
Yes, that they were inevitable. Some people disagree with that.
That doesn't mean that they're good.
But my point is that this is generally relevant to it. You have a broader point than free speech. This is one of the things you talk about. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas I think there are some other activists who focus on more exclusively.
I'm not
an
activist.
There's some other individuals who engage in public political speech.
Psychologists.
Okay.
Yeah. Who focus more exclusively on free speech, whereas you have other goals in mind. But one of the things that your more inflammatory language, and it's fair, it's a substantive disagreement, has done, I think, is it's politicized this free speech to an extent that someone like Haidt hasn't. I've noticed that when someone hears the term free speech now, they associate it with a specific set of thinkers, often as viewed as on the extreme right. And I think arguably that's the problem of all factions in society, because free speech should be a universal value. Polls certainly suggest that it's coming under increasing threat from both sides. But I suppose the heart of my question, in addition to, of course, these other observations...
We're almost 4 minutes in, and this kid is still talking. Like, this kid is the definition of talking a lot and not saying anything. And that's what usually would make a great politician. And I have to take a moment to appreciate Jordan, his patience. Like, his patience. He's a kind soul. He always allows people to speak. He could just completely own them right up front, bash them, just go crazy, make all the students would be laughing, and this kid would have a rough go for the rest of his day and the rest of his time at this university. But Jordan, he's so kind and compassionate. He's letting him speak, letting him just talk all day long. I bet legend has it that this kid is still talking to this day. But 4 minutes in, we haven't got to the question yet. Come on now, get around to it, young man. I'm ready.
Coming under increasing threat from both sides. But I suppose the heart of my question, in addition to, of course, these other observations, is that Do you believe free speech is your primary end, or do you believe these other points you're making are important? Because I've heard you a bunch of times defend free speech sort of contextually, like you've complained about some of the laws in Canada that you dislike, that they institutionalize false facts into the law. But it seems to me that an absolutist defense of free speech makes no preference as to true or false. The point is that's something you are being forced to say something. It would be as bad as if you were forced to say something that is true, because the point of free speech is that you can say whatever you want, right?
No, the point of free speech is so that you can think your way through life without running headlong into a brick wall.
Think position A versus position B is just as bad, right? Even if one is true and the other is not.
Okay, well, there was a bunch of questions.
Yes.
Good job, by the way.
Well, actually, wait, can I just ask one additional addendum?
Oh, Lord help. Can I make a call to the Lord?
The politicization of free speech is by far the biggest threat to free speech, because this has always been...
No, the radical leftists are the biggest threat to free speech.
So this is a disagreement.
Ding, ding, ding.
But I get your point.
The professor alluded to in previous questions, the substantive threats to free speech in much of the world, in Europe certainly, I think in the United States as well, from the government have come from the radical right. And I think it's fair to say that on the specific narrow subset of certain departments on liberal arts colleges, it's fair to say a threat comes from the left, though its scope is in dispute. But my question is, do you think that the way you talk about free speech, the way you link it to specific issues, the way you use inflammatory language, and the way you seem to defend a specific set of free speech, there are certainly plenty of instances of free speech attacked on the other side that you don't mention as much. Do you think you risk politicizing this? Because it seems to me
yes.
that... Okay, and do you not think that's a far greater threat? Because, for example, the NRA is a group in the United States that defends guns rights, right?
Okay, hold it.
Yes.
We need a question.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, like I said, you're doing fine, but it's just too much. Like, I can't keep it straight.
Do you think that your behavior risks politicizing it? And do you think that politicization is justified?
I think my behavior risks politicizing it, yes. I would rather it not be politicized. And I'm doing what I can to manage that risk. However, it's become political in my country because the government implemented compelled speech legislation. So I wasn't complaining about that before it became political. Now, and there is a time, even when you're detached in some sense from the political realm, that you can't be detached anymore. Well, I'm not happy with the fact that this has become politicized. You could say that I haven't done a stellar job in ensuring in every possible manner that this has remained neutrally apolitical. Probably true, but I'm not particularly unhappy with the way things have gone so far. And I'm not happy with the radical left. And so if they're irritated at me, so much the better, as far as I'm concerned. So have I conducted myself perfectly? It's like, undoubtedly no. So I've got more than my fair share of faults, and a temper is one of them. But
all of us we're all flawed. We all know that. And I don't got to bring Jesus into this conversation. If you go back and watch my past videos, you know my values, you know what I stand on. Jordan's saying at some point, politics have to be discussed, because at some point, somewhere along the line, like somebody or some law is going to come into effect, and it's going to affect your values, affect the morals and the principles that you stand on. You're going to have to speak up, or you're just going to be like a sheep. That's why he argues so much for free speech, because free speech isn't saying that you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, just based on no facts, no logic, no nothing, just pure emotion. Gay!
I'm a pimp slap you. Say it again.
He's saying that somewhere along the line, you have to be able to speak up for the things that you care about, the things that you value.
Oh, God, please, no! No!
The things that you were raised on or that you grew into, like myself, whatever that may be. And in Canada, it's way different than here in the United States, which we take for granted. All of us, a lot of people, especially on the far left, they take advantage of all the freedoms we've been awarded, all the freedoms we've been blessed with, that our founding fathers found this country on Christian values, and they try to bash, belittle, and say it's not perfect, it's all racist, it's all this and that. But they could leave. If it was so bad, they could leave. But then if people on the left, if they actually exited this country, they would see how bad other people have it and how good they really have it.
Well, I'm out, man.
But they take that for granted. And he could easily lose his temper right now. He could easily destroy, absolutely demolish this boy right here. But he hasn't, which shows true compassion and his patience. That's something I'm trying to take note of. Just being able to watch and listen, and just, I can practice it right now by playing.
I'm muddling through.
So now I know there's much, much more to say, but I have some questions from the audience, so I'd like to read those, and I'll try again just to divide up the time in the questions, hopefully as fairly as possible.
Should have just kept the hand down.
Professor Peterson, let's start with you. So this question says, you present your issue with Bill C-16 to be that the infringement of freedom of expression regarding gender pronouns is a problem. Do you hold the same stance with other discriminatory language in the Human Rights Code, such as being able to use racist terms with regard to students? And if you believe that one of these things is a violation but not the other one, why? I'm not sure I read that out all that well, but you get the idea.
Okay, well, so one thing I would like to point out, I have in fact been denounced.
Let the intellectual speak.
And what I am saying has in fact been described as hate propaganda. So one thing I'd like to suggest to you, every single person in the audience, you're next. So keep it in mind. All right, so with regards to the question, well, first of all, I don't think that these issues are the same. I don't think they're the same at all. I mean, I've been thinking about the pronoun thing, you know, because one of the things that people, it put me back on my heels for a while, because the claim was basically, well, it's something like, why doesn't the mean professor just play nice and respect people by using their pronouns? And it took me like 3 weeks to unpack that, because who gets questioned about pronoun use? I don't know why the hell I use the pronouns I use. I use them because they're part of the language. I use he and she because that's what everyone uses. And so then I had to think about, well, why do we in fact use pronouns? And we use them in part for the same reason that we use other categories, and that's to simplify the world for functional purposes, roughly speaking. But then I was thinking, well, is the use of he and she a mark of respect? And the answer to that is, well, no, it's not a mark of respect. It can't be a mark of respect. What you call 4 billion people can't be a mark of respect, right? It's a mark of basic categorization. And so then the claim comes up, well, if someone wants you to use a particular pronoun, then you're disrespecting them if you don't. It's like, okay, let's think that through a bit. Well, that assumes that when I'm using he or she for people in normal parlance, that I'm actually indicating my respect for them. And that's not true. It's like, if I don't know you, I classify you generically, and basically I classify you in terms of how you present yourself publicly. I suppose that's your gender expression. And then I nail you with whatever pronoun seems to fit. It has nothing to do with respect. And besides that, you bloody well don't get to demand my respect. Why should you? You know, I mean, it's not like I respect everyone. That's a foolish thing to do. You respect people who are respectable. You know, you make value distinctions between people, and that doesn't mean you illegally discriminate against them. Those aren't the same thing. But I'm all for value judgments. If you don't buy value judgments, then why bother learning anything? Why bother doing anything? Why go from one point in your life to another if the next point isn't better in some manner? So don't tell me that I'm not respecting people when I don't use their gendered pronouns. And the other thing is, I don't buy this whole idea that the people who are putting this legislation forward are valid representatives of the trans community. That's what they say they are. We have mechanisms for deciding whether someone's a valid representative of a community, and that generally involves democratic voting. I've received at least 20 letters from transsexual people who are on my side, and by the way, 0 from others, believe it or not, who are perfectly happy with the idea of gendered pronouns. It's just they want to be the other one. Now, you can have a discussion about that, and there's lots of things to be said about it, but the idea that this community that's coming out and demanding these rights is somehow representative of this homogenous oppressed minority, I think is rubbish.
Well, that leads us to our next question.
So, from my understanding, he's saying respect is earned, not just given. Not just because you say I should call you something, should that be so. So if you grew up like myself and you see somebody a man in a dress, like it's still a man in a dress. I'm gonna call you man. Like, what's up, dude? What's up? How you doing, man? Ma'am, sir, miss, all of those sort of things. So he's saying respect is earned, and just because you want me to call you something, if I see you a certain way and I don't respect you, why would I call you what you want me to call you? Like I'm not entitled to respect you just off the sheer premise that you want me to. Like there's like 6 billion people I believe in the world now. female. So he, him, it's just a generalization of addressing the person. You know what I'm saying? So that may sound a little confusing. I think I'm confusing myself, to be honest. That's why he's the intellectual heavyweight. I am not. I'm Devin Gibson. I'd like to think I'm intelligent, but I'm still growing. I'm still developing. Y'all explain it to me in the comments how you take this, what your view is. I'm curious. What's your view on this? Do you think people should be called what they want to be called? Or do you think, like, if I see you, I don't know you, I have no prior context or background information about you, if I see a man, I'm gonna say he? And if he wants to be called a woman, like, why should I be required to call him a woman just because he wants that? That's like, just because I see Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk and I want the money that they got, I should get it because I want it. Like, it's kind of, I mean, that's kind of shallow, but I'm confused. Just I don't know, man. I'm going to call it, there's men and women, period. And if I see you as a man and you were in fact born a man, I'm calling you a dude. If you're a girl, you were born a female, you got those chromosomes, you can't change them, I'm calling you a woman. It's real simple. That's for me. But hey, I don't know. I'm learning too. I ain't perfect.
So one of the objectives of the transgender and queer rights movement is to enter into public conscience in a way. And this person asks, this can only occur through public conversation. Do you worry that it may not be possible to have thoughtful discussion if there is government restriction about this kind of speech? And do you worry that it would skew discussion in one direction or another? So perhaps Professor Kosman first, and then Professor Bryson.
So I've spent a career being concerned about the way in which thoughtful discussion is often shut down. And I've been concerned about it on the right, I've been concerned about it on the left, and I've been concerned about it in the mushy middle. And I think that Professor Peterson has actually performed some of this today, insofar as he just said that he was denounced here today and that they're going to come for you next. So the thing is about speech is that everybody gets it. And you say something and you then get criticized. So Professor Peterson hasn't been denounced, some might want to, but he has been severely criticized. And that is actually what speech does. That is what speech does. I think that there is an important way to have public discussions around a whole range of issues. I would welcome a discussion on the role of hate speech provisions. I would welcome a discussion around the role of hate speech and its desirability, about whether the Supreme Court of Canada is right or not right in upholding its constitutionality. But I would like to have that debate with someone who is knowledgeable about the law.
So he's not.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Professor Bryson.
Jordan, he wasn't defending hate speech in any way, at all.
One of the big questions that I had to deal with in considering whether or not to accept the very generous offer, invitation of the University of Toronto to come here today would be the impact of this event on trans and gender non-binary people, specifically at the University of Toronto and much more generally.
I have to say that woman is a little confused. She's got a blazer on. She's got her hair cut kind of, higher up, faded than mine. And it's a woman. You can hear it in the tone of the voice, but she is definitely dressed like a man. So I'm not going to call you a man because you come in dressed, suited, and booted like a dude. And it's just not going to happen.
Generally. And so, whereas I would say that I recognize practices of peer review, and practices of peer review are not denouncement. Practices of peer review are practices that we utilize to make assessments about knowledge claims, whereas I would fully appreciate being able to enter into a discussion about gender and gender identity and issues around trans culture as a means of practicing peer review. I think the difficulty that we've had, and we've managed to reproduce this difficulty here today, characterized just now by Dr. Peterson as simplifying the world for functional purposes. Simplifying the world for functional purposes is not what I recognize to be academic practice. This is not how we relate to knowledge. And so I think that there's a concern when we don't subject claims that are being made as knowledge claims by people who carry titles at great Canadian universities, when we don't treat those knowledge claims in the same way that we would in any other field. And when they're knowledge claims made about members of minority groups, embattled, vulnerable, marginalized members of minority groups, then I think that we all need to be very concerned about how it is that we're changing what we think we do in the university, which is supposed to be about the advancement of knowledge and excellence.
Huh? That woman went from impact on non-binaries to peer review to I don't know what she was talking about. And I try to stay in the loop, but y'all tossed me all the way into the abyss with that one. That was a whole lot of babbling action and people just confusing themselves is what I gathered. And all three of them got careers as politicians, but they're going to flop. That's a fact. And hey, you can take that as disrespectful if you want to, but you got to earn this over here. And if you dress like a dude, you're a woman. I mean, do your thing. You're going to have to face judgment at the end of the day, just like me by the good Lord. But I'm disagreeing with it. You're a man or you're a woman. It's really that simple. And Jordan's talked about this time and time again. And I love the way he broke that down way more eloquently than I. But if Jordan hadn't interrupted that first dude so often, he might have passed out from lack of oxygen because he was just talking on and on. The lawyer came up next. She was just full of a bunch of jargon and nonsense. And then whatever the woman's name was, who may want to be called John or whatever it was, that I'm not going to call her. We'll call her Cindy for now. She was all over the map. She didn't know what topic she wanted to focus on and pinpoint and discuss with other peers and have that review. I don't know, man. Y'all let me know in the conversation what went over my head. What did I miss? I'm just trying to improve. I'm trying to grow and learn. And the best way I feel like I can do that is exposing myself to this knowledge right here. Like the best way for me to learn about something is to frequently talk about it and discuss it with y'all in the comments and keep on watching these videos. So link down below some other ones I need to check out. I'll also link my playlist of debates, culture, news, anything like that I always give my opinion on and my 2 cents. But hey, if you don't want it, hey, you don't got to step up to the counter and pay. You don't have to accept my money. It is what it is. There's more than one channel to watch that you can feel free to scroll to. But if you do rock with it, subscribe, like, notification bell. If you want to support the channel, you can always join the Patreon family. That's where you can request musical reactions, things like that. You can buy me a coffee, donate on PayPal. You don't have to do any of that at all. You can just tune in, watch me watch and break down, and whatever y'all gather from my videos, I'm grateful to have you. I love you. Shout out to Jordan Peterson. Shout out to Canada. Shout out to everybody out there just trying to improve and spread some common sense, because it ain't that common anymore, and we need to have these discussions and bring it back to reality, bring it back to fact. Stop trying to change things up and go off these feelings just because you feel like something one day. No, there's a line in the sand. There's certain things that we should just be naturally just prone to not crossing that line, but people have gone off their rocker. The world is a dangerous place right now, and it takes true patriots, true people standing up, whether they're from Canada or not, standing up for what's right, what's real, and what's, should be common sense. But again, it's not common anymore. But I'm gonna keep on fighting the good fight. Hopefully y'all do the same. I love y'all. Godspeed. I'm gone.